your alcohol doesn't ease your anxiety. Your alcohol causes your anxiety, which makes you want to drink. I was like, oh, isn't it weird I didn't see it from that angle?
There's a lot of reflection and a lot of healing that tends to get done when you stop drinking.
Why don't we kind of grow this community? So I'll have more friends to do fun parties with.
Yeah, I just can't believe like the incredible people that have come into my life over the last year that maybe when I was drinking I would have overlooked. Welcome back to the Upward Spiral podcast, where we discuss the surprising benefits of drinking less. So I'm your host, Michelle O'Brien, and today we are going to be getting into alcohol-free events, sober community, and how music can be the heartbeat of a healthier life. Really excited to introduce to you today Chris Shearman, co-founder of Wild Pearl Studio, DJ, and champion of alcohol-free fun. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the Podster podcast studio here in Singapore.
Hi, Michelle.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you were just telling me about an amazing event that you had on Sunday. I just want to get straight into it because I actually want to continue our conversation about this. So tell me what happened on Sunday.
Yeah, cargobike is one of our concepts. We basically built a DJ booth in the front of a cargobike, and then I cycle, and we have a different DJ each time, and we basically go around Marina Bay. So we start off at the Chimmy's restaurant at NTUC Centre, go past MBS, Barrage, Tanjong Rhu, National Stadium, Kelang Riverside Park. It's about an hour, Esplanade and then back. So super nice. It's at sunset. And this time around, we've been heavily promoting it. So we're back to our original highest peak of like 70 people. It's super fun. So it's just DJs playing, people following, really wholesome, but also, really fun at the same time.
Feels like it might be causing a bit of chaos here in the very organised Singapore.
We thought long and hard about it. So I've been cycling around Marina Bay, listening to music on bikes for a long time. And we had this sound system which is already battery powered, already kind of off grid from some of the things we were doing at the beach cleanup with Ocean Purpose Project. And I just tried to figure out, okay, well, there's this guy online called Dom Whiting. He seems to be doing it. It seems to be popular. It looks like more in our kind of realm of like fun but healthy. So I was like, okay, well, let me talk to some people. Everyone I talked to said, I'm going to get arrested. It's not possible. No one's going to join us, and it's just not a good idea.
So everyone was dead positive about it then?
Yeah, well, if I listened to everyone, we wouldn't be here. But, in the end, the way I figured it out was you've got these kind of very friendly old uncles on the East Coast with their bikes, which play music very loud, and they seem to be accepted. You have these mass cycling groups of foldy enthusiasts, like 90 people going around the park connector. So I was like, well, what if we were just the same? What if we were just those two things joined together? So that's kind of what we've been doing, really. So yes, it gets a bit tight sometimes on the park connector, but I don't know. I think we do quite a good job. Like all the people who ride on Any Wheels are insured by Any Wheel. We do a briefing at the beginning. We tell people to bring helmets and water. So I think we do quite a good job of like managing it as best we can. But I think if we had like double the amount of people, then I don't know, I've got to write a nice letter to LTA or something.
Yeah. It actually sounds more organised than I kind of visioned in my head.
Yeah. So the things that I'm always worried about is when people are filming it. So we're all on bikes. Someone's filming it. They're having a great time. I'm just always brief people like to make sure they got one eye on like what's happening ahead and just make sure that people are not on the pedestrian lanes when we're all cycling. I think things like that is fine. Like people get it. We can't kind of police everything to death. We're trying to have fun, but there are some things you can do to kind of make it a bit more manageable. And yeah, we don't want to have any injuries or any complaint because that's how we carry on for a long time, basically.
Yeah, it sounds so fun. And like you said, something really wholesome to do on a Saturday afternoon.
Yes, it's been great. And we've had some really good support. So I'm hoping that we can take it to some other places. I've been trying to manifest this whole thing around doing a F1 track walk. That's the thing that we haven't been able to do yet that I would love to do. So if anyone's watching that can put us in touch, then that's like a big bucket list item for whether it's this year or next year. We definitely have the support to get it done, so we'll see.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make that happen. Sorry, that was kind of a bit of a digressed start into this chat, but it just sounds so fun, and I definitely want to come next time and bring my kids.
I would say it's a good place to start, because without me making a conscious decision to stop drinking, like cargobike wouldn't exist. So getting bored on a Sunday morning because I had a bunch of free time and having all this equipment and not really knowing what to do with it and having itchy feet, I think is a good summary of not just like this concept, but the whole company that we've had, is that doing something when you feel like a bit off and trying to make something happen to make things better rather than complain about it or kind of wallow in it, I think is a really good summary about us as a company and definitely my attitude towards a lot of things.
Okay, this sounds amazing and a really optimistic start. So,
yes.
Let's just kind of get in that. So just please tell me your story, everything kind of from DJing, COVID, and your sobriety.
A lot of this is kind of come from things I love. So I've always loved music, always loved electronic music. And then as I grew up, that evolved into going out, going to venues, going to gigs. When I was younger at at quite an academic school, we had a great art teacher who basically told me and my two friends, right, my friend Ed, like, you should go and do music. My friend Alex, you should go and do design. And to me, so you should go and do art. So it's really weird that you have like a teacher who has that much influence on your life, but she was super fun, like very talented. So I just took her advice and ran with it. I went to art school. My parents were quite chill about it, which is weird, but neither of my parents have got degrees. My dad was an entrepreneur. My mum was a homemaker and had her own career. So I think they just wanted me to be happy, which is quite nice. Then when I went to art school, worked in a nightclub, started collecting music, saw the most amount of DJs you could ever imagine because I was working. And actually, that's a great environment to be unintentionally sober in because you just have to work. And yes, like sometimes the bosses come along with shots of Sambuca and stuff like that to keep everyone going. But I was like mostly sober in that environment for like 3 years. Got to see a lot of DJs, got to see a lot behind the scenes stuff, picked up a lot of music, didn't spend a lot of money like most of my peers were because I was just working at the weekends instead of going out. And then I'd have these weird trips to London on like a Sunday night and go and see my friends in the week. And if you do art, there's not much expectation on you having to be somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's really nice kind of exploratory time, at least for the first couple of years. And I would just go and see my friends who, like the guy I speak about, Ed, he actually went on to go and be a really big DJ and producer and lives in Berlin, and also is having his own version of a very sober lifestyle, even in this kind of crazy nightlife world. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see how these things happen. But I just became a DJ because, I don't know, like I had all these records, wasn't really hearing a lot of things that I wanted to. So we set up our own music night. We promoted artists. So it's still that kind of spirit of like, don't see what you want, don't complain about it, do your own thing. But then when I left uni, I went to London, realized it was not, most people who do art, at least at the time, were either working at an art gallery or they had to spend a lot of time pursuing things on the side. I had 5 years in London where going out still, focusing on my career, trying to be creative, but I kind of felt a bit disconnected from creativity. And then weirdly, like the opportunities of my career kept increasing, and that's what brought me out to Singapore. So 2012, I came out here. The thing I noticed, though, it was a lot of people who were out here for their career, and there were not necessarily a lot of like creatives out here, at least in kind of my peer group of like, let's say, foreigners who moved here.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the first couple of years, I just kind of went traveling, kind of didn't really do many creative things. I was trying to convince a couple of bars to let me bring my turntables and my vinyl, but it was a weird time. Like CDJs for like playing digital music were not very good, and no one wanted to book a vinyl DJ, and there was not much around really, like that I could find. So I just kind of distracted myself with kind of going out for long brunches and boat parties and
How long ago was this?
2012.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I was 2014. It was just a different time though, as well.
Yeah.
Like it was very much Singapore. It was Club Street. was for, especially kind of as expats, you know, they'd close the road, everyone would be drinking outside Bartini, and that would be kind of, that was the scene there.
Yes.
And I think, again, same as you, coming from London, where, you know, your whole summer lineup from Easter until kind of October time is every weekend there was just something amazing happening in London. There were kind of new DJs, sunset events, there was festivals, there was just always something amazing going on. And I think moving here, I don't want to say there's a lack of culture, that it's just the culture, it is very different.
Yeah.
And I can feel you on that.
Yeah, I just struggle to find something like for like, but you're not going to find the kind of things that have taken like 10, 20 years to evolve in London. Like London's like music scene is very specific to that location. So I'm never going to find like the London scene I like in Singapore. I'm not going to find what I love about Berlin in Singapore. The thing I've come to realize is that there has always been things happening in Singapore. I think part of it was just I didn't spend enough time looking for it. And also because I didn't find exactly what I wanted, I kind of looked at the rest of what was happening as kind of not as good as. So the more time I've invested in either our own studio or getting to know other people, the more I've realized that like, there's actually a lot of great people here. And the weird thing about COVID is because there weren't so many DJs coming from overseas, the local scene picked up, got a bit more confidence, a lot more opportunities for local DJs to step up, and it's just been great to see. So I guess that's kind of my entry into Singapore. But I just had this kind of quite nice life for 6 or 7 years where I was kind of dipping in and out of nightlife. I'd found Headquarters, Eileen, who's sadly no longer with us, and a few people like that where I could still go to events where there was what I found was good music. Like Rich and I would go out quite a lot. We'd bring our friends with us, but it was like, I don't know, once every month. And then I think what happened in COVID was everywhere closed. And I was just at this stage in my life where I've been to a couple of big festivals and I just realized that I met some people who were both what I saw as kind of like fully functioning adults with like great careers, but they were also really fun and like prioritized, I don't know, like human connection and having a good time. So I kind of wanted to do more of that. So the weird thing that happened is I kind of came back from the US in 2019, kind of determined to put on more like house parties and gatherings, something I did actually when I was at school. I used to do these quite big parties at school, like when I was 18 or 19-year-old promoter. It's kind of something that I didn't realize I had in me. Yeah, COVID happened, and then I was just like, well, I've got all this DJ equipment at home. I've got all these lights. Let's just make it more fun. So I had this thing where I got a mirror ball, got some new DJ equipment, got a smoke machine, and every weekend, even though it was a bit of a disaster, what was happening, I would host my friends. We'd do these
virtually or in real life.
In real life, I know that some months there was like some real disconnects. So these were the times where you could have like 5 or 6 people around. We'd go out places until like 10:30 and then have to go home. But then we'd have these like crazy parties in my house. It was fun. Like we would go until like 7 a.m. We'd be DJing all this different music. I'd have like 4 or 5 friends were DJs. So we'd all go back to back. But then on a Sunday, I'd have to turn my spare room back into an office. I'd have like all these things to get ready for in the week. So it was like it's weird. For a while, it was fun, but it never quite worked. So I had this kind of facade of like having this nice home office that was all very well lit. Not quite as pro as here, but then struggling to kind of turn it back into a fun night space.
It's almost like it's double life kind of going on.
Yeah, and maybe that's the kind of difference between then and now, is that I really struggled to bring those things together. And there was definitely like junctures where it didn't quite work. But I was always like still doing a lot of running at Fort Canning, riding my bike a lot. So I was kind of pushing myself quite hard at the same time, like kind of burning a candle at both ends. But there was never really a problem with that at the time. One night I met my now business partner, Andy. I hosted my friend's birthday party and just thought Andy was really fun. Like he's from California. He's a bit younger than me. He was just new to Singapore. They moved in the pandemic, which is like really tough in terms of forming human connection. But they were him and his wife, Brooke, are very sociable people. And then when he and I met, he just loved what we were doing. And I pitched him this idea, just like I try to manifest this F1 track walk, I manifested what's now our studio by telling Andy, it's like, oh, well, wouldn't it be great if we did this party, but you didn't need to rely on me being home. What would happen if we put it outside my house? I'm thinking about moving all my DJ kit into a room somewhere. He was like, oh, it sounds like a fun idea. All my other friends were like, well, sounds like a bad idea. I'll just come to your house. But then Andy came along. We went to Paul's Hill. I kind of knew from the old cult that it would be a good location. We had a few fun days out at Cult Yard in like May 2020, just after everything was like starting to close down. So I just knew that Cult was a fun vibe. The building was nice. And somehow if you sat in that courtyard with your friends, it was like COVID wasn't really happening because you couldn't see any of the skyline. So you could pretend you weren't in Singapore. It was like a blue sky above you and everyone was kind of having a good time. And yeah, it was a kind of, the owners just know how to have a good time. So even though it was like restrictions and you couldn't really switch tables and they had to kind of manage people, it was still like kind of, I don't know, reminding me of like what we were experiencing before. That's why when we went upstairs to go and check out the studios, originally I was telling our landlord that I wanted to have an art studio where I could play loud music because I wasn't not sure that he would let me build like a mini nightclub in one of his units. But then we walked past this old recording studio and it had like, it said recording now on the door in big lights. And Andy was like, well, what's in there? And this guy, Jerry, was like, well, there's a music studio. You guys want an art studio? We were like, well, let's just have a look inside. And we opened the door and it was perfect. It was like this perfect size, maybe kind of 4 meters by 3 meters. It had like a vocal booth, but the vocal booth, you could see that you could fit all the DJ equipment into. So Andy and I just looked at each other and we decided just to get it. When you take these risks and you go and do something that you really love, then really bad times can actually become some of your best times. So the day we picked up our keys was the day that Singapore went down to only 2 people could be together. And so for like a month, Andy and I were just painting the studio, going around buying like soft furnishings and putting things on the wall, getting fridges from Carousel, having like weird moments where we wanted to get some carpets and then we found some carpets in the street from the old Kilo closing. So we've got like these amazing old Turkish rugs. So I don't know, I think that we kind of lent into that and made sure like everything was just like really nice. I painted the walls red and I don't know, spent a lot of time and effort figuring out where to put the lights. So we made this kind of really nice haven for ourselves. And yeah, that was the beginning really. And then we started just inviting our mates around.
And so this was the beginning of Wild Pearl Studio?
Yes, It was our first studio. It was only meant to be a temporary thing, only meant to be for us. It was a lot of people didn't see it how we originally had it. So we originally had it just for us, 5 mates in the room, quite cozy with seats on the floor, nice sound system. We built this kind of Burning Man honesty bar where if you just brought your alcohol and just left it at the bar. I've actually found that really useful because I didn't like drinking at home a lot. So I used to just put all my alcohol in the studio. So I was still drinking then, but it was definitely less, and it was definitely when we were hosting. It was really fun to kind of blow people's minds. So they'd come around after like all week at work, and they would come to our studio, and they couldn't believe what we'd made because it was perfect. Like you could play the music as loud as you want. There was no restrictions on timing. You could DJ whatever you want because it was our place. No one was going to charge you for drinks, and no one was going to like tell you what to do. As long as we only had like 5 people in the room or 8 people in the room, it was great.
So good.
Yes, it was just fun.
But this is sometimes what the best things are born out of, just fun, right? Like you were doing it for a passion and for a love of it. And then, now it's just incredible.
Yeah, well, COVID was so serious and so disconnected that you kind of needed to have something which was like equal and opposite force to cope with it. And I definitely, the moments where, and I guess we haven't touched on this yet, but in March 2020, so like maybe like a week or 2 before the pandemic shutdown happened, I just changed jobs and I was setting up a company for someone, I set up the Asia office for a global business. And I was basically employee number 1, doing all the licensing and stuff like that. but I ended up being in an office with no windows on my own for 18 months. So that definitely takes its toll on you. Like when you are so connected during the day talking to people, but at night, it definitely led me into some moments where I was like, I got to do something about this.
It's lonely.
Like that kind of like unnatural disconnection. Yeah, so I think that's why it became such a great place for everyone, because it was just trying to solve one problem. It was trying to solve like a mental health problem with fun. It had a very serious goal, but it had a very like frivolous like exterior. And that's what I don't know, that's kind of us all along, basically.
Yeah, I love it so much. And you stopped drinking. So you were kind of creating this space and a lot of it kind of was evolved around the music and drinking and community. What made you stop drinking?
Yeah, since I was like 25, 26, always had like dry Jan, sober October, something like that off. Always, because I had this like feeling in the back of my head that it's just good to have a bit of balance. I realized that's probably not the right way to do it, how I was doing it, but at least I had that intention. So I've always had this kind of idea that trying to maintain some kind of balance. That's why I ride a lot of bikes, trying to spend a lot of time outdoors. And I always knew that like parties and nightlife and DJing come with a lot of things which are not healthy, like whether it's
just a lot of excess.
Yeah, just all like a lot of things that like staying awake super late, drinking, all these other things, just not a good idea. Or not helpful to like if you want to live to be 100, basically. So, but I didn't really worry about that too much for a while. But definitely, the older I got, the more I lent into it. But then the whole non-drinking thing, the 6 months I talked to you about earlier. So post brunches, only for friends, friends' birthdays, just for us. That kind of came to a halt in April. Must have been April 2022 when Singapore reopened. So we just decided, okay, well, let's just see how many people we can get into the room. Like it'd be just fun to have it really busy. So Colt Yard was always open. We got to know those guys because Andy and I would just do some painting and renovations upstairs and then go downstairs. We'd always tell them like, oh, you guys should come up and check it out. But no one ever did. We were a little bit offended for a while. I think they just thought we were just doing something. It was like a guitar studio, But then what happened was a lot of people started arriving, and then the word spread that our place was fun. Maybe the problem I had at that point was I was really enjoying like the hosting. The frequency of hosting went up. We basically became this kind of unofficial nightclub. So we wanted to open every Friday and every Saturday. We'd show people around in the week. It just became super popular because everyone kind of wanted it. And even though they could see each other, they couldn't go back to their usual places they would go to. Even if you went to upstairs at the time, which is HQ's kind of restaurant, you weren't really allowed to dance. And if the police came, they would make sure that you were sat to your table. So you didn't feel free.
I remember going to employees only for a friend's birthday, and it was like we could stand up, but we had to be at our table. Yeah. And so it was just really, they kind of had put this like tape around the tables, and you were kind of almost like locked in around your little booth table. And if you stepped out of that line, they would be really strict.
And I get it.
Just killed the vibe.
It's not fun. No one likes to be told what to do. I think it's just a default human reaction to anything. Anyway, so I just ended up hosting for like 2 months a lot. And what I noticed is it's definitely drinking more because we had this, because the bars got more popular. Everyone would like, a few friends left, and they would give us like a table full of like half full bottles. So we had all this like fun, it looked like a kind of speakeasy in the end. So we had all these like fun drinks. We would make all these weird cocktails for everyone. I'd leave sometimes at like 6 a.m. My fiance now we just started seeing each other. So she was very okay with me doing this thing because it just seemed like a fun thing, and she always liked coming along as well. So there was no one really telling us to slow down. And
were you charging people to come?
No. We just didn't know. We just felt bad like charging. So what are we selling? We've got other people's drinks. The rent's super cheap. It's got all my DJ equipment, and we're doing it for fun. Like what? Like how can we charge people for this? And that was also the great thing. Like it's like these festivals like Burning Man, where if everything is free, then everyone's kind of really stripped down, and everyone's kind of like doesn't know what to do about it. And I kind of like that, because you have those moments where you give someone a drink for free, or you give someone an amazing night out for free, and they immediately want to do something back for you. And it wasn't necessarily this kind of transactional thing where we're like, let's do it for free and like make it our business model and we'll like, this will be our way to do things. It was like more like, we don't think we can charge for this because we are having too much fun.
I love this. And, you just don't see it very much anymore.
Well, you do if you're me and you do it a lot because you get it done to you back. So I think that I don't blame people for being suspicious of free stuff or for wanting a bit of quid pro quo. I get that. And I get that long term you want to build a business and build something sustainably. You need to have a business model, which we have now. But I also think that you shouldn't kill things early on. The nicest thing to see is someone who's really enjoying themselves and doing what they love. And I think that a lot of people are not brave enough, and I definitely wasn't brave enough to do exactly what I wanted to do and to let other people either unsubscribe and or like fully be along with it. So you have to be quite brave in those moments.
Yeah, you have to also believe. You just have to put kind of unwavering faith in the universe that it will work its way out, itself out. And, if you're putting all of this positivity and joy and happiness and fun and energy out in the world, that's all just going to come flooding back to you with some.
Yeah, but you do get like little messages along the way, and I don't necessarily know how to explain some of these things, but the moment we started to do things which were exactly what we wanted and completely uncompromised, weird things that were very helpful were happening, like finding $6,000 worth of very pristine carpets that were being thrown out. At the moment, we needed carpets. Finding people who were connected to all the DJs that have become our friends that we now book for all our shows and bring us to their shows, or all the bars that when all the bars kicked out, all the staff came to our place. So Employees Only, Wine Revolt, Sego House guys, all came, 28 Hong Kong Street, they would all come to ours about 1 a.m. So we'd have this second wave. And now we end up working with a lot of these people. They're like our customers as well as our friends. Yeah. So, but I don't think you could ever engineer that kind of stuff. You just have to do it kind of blindly, step by step. So maybe like why the no drinking? It was just really clear to me. One morning, a couple of mornings I woke up and I really liked riding bikes, and I just couldn't. I was a bit hungover, a bit just not quite on it. I was definitely one morning just not concentrating enough, and we're doing these kind of preparing for like a trip abroad with our bikes, and there's these big kind of like tennis court sized airbags, and you hit this wooden jump and you land on it, and I just wasn't concentrating, didn't quite like judge things properly, and I basically ended up like falling off my bike and breaking my leg. So I wasn't like super hungover, but I was like, I'm just not concentrating. I'm not like, maybe I'm like 80% on it, and it just was a bit annoyed at myself because I was like, had to go and get checked out in the evening. My leg was definitely broken, and having a broken leg is like super inconvenient. Yeah, because it actually takes out your arms because you're having to use crutches all the time. I had my boss in town the next week, and I had to do like 20 meetings with a broken leg, and I basically said to myself, this is like when I need to repair my leg, then I'm going to stop drinking for a while, because I realized that I had this big job that was like taking up a lot of my time, that had a lot of responsibility. Had this studio which we decided to run as a side project that I wasn't going to close down, even though that things were open again. So I was like, well, and I can't be a really good drinker at the same time, so I'm going to have to pick two. So I was like, well, I want to stay in Singapore and I want to have a good job. And this side project, I kind of want to fund with my day job, like, because the side project didn't make any money. So I was like, well, it's a really easy calculation. I was going to stop drinking. I knew I was going to be quite good at stopping drinking for like a month or two. So basically, I let myself kind of have like a fun time, like healing my leg for like 2 months. And then when my leg was good enough to go to a physio and do it properly, then I stopped drinking. So I had my last drink in like London Bridge in London when I went to and visit my family. Came back, didn't have any drinks on the flight, and then just stopped from there. But it was like, I prepared myself well. I had like, ironically, like breaking my leg was probably the best thing that happened, because it was like a real shock to like the system. I had to really rethink a few things. I knew that taking an extended period of time off would be a great idea. I knew that I wanted to spend more time on the studio. I knew that I wanted to spend a few more hours every day working. And I knew that there's a few podcasts that I follow where they're sober, or like they invite a lot of sober guests. And you can just see these people have achieved a lot. Like the phrase that resonates with me is called like the sober arc. So like the things that they achieve after they stop drinking. And it was like this thing that was always in the back of my mind, but I never really did enough about it. I was always doing like a month, not seeing everyone, and then celebrating with a brunch. I realized that's probably not enough time to get things done that I wanted to.
That sober arc, it's real, and I had dreams that things I wanted to do, and I just didn't have it in me while I still drank.
Yeah.
Even just a couple of weeks were enough to have a knock-on effect of energy, of everything.
Yeah.
So, and it's just amazing, like what you can get done and what you can achieve when you're not bogged down feeling shattered.
There's also like a dark side to it that has to be dealt with as well. Like for me, I always kind of saw it as a bit like when the tide goes out. So it might you end up with these rocks that you see. And those rocks for me were the things that couldn't be cured through not drinking. So yeah, maybe if you are shy, alcohol is like a better way to get to know people. Maybe if you go to venues and you don't quite like the music, like at a brunch, you can distract yourself with another round of champagne. But if you really want to pursue something, so for me, I really want to listen to good music. I really wanted to do more things outside. Like it makes you really you have to sit in those moments of being like a bit bored, a bit annoyed that things aren't happening for you, and feeling a bit a bit kind of despondent sometimes.
Yeah.
I had to live through those moments, and that's where all the good energies come from. Yeah. I thought it would just be this magical journey of like stopping drinking, and everything would improve linearly over time, but it didn't happen that way for sure.
No, and that's something that I haven't really talked a lot on this podcast yet about is the first 6 months, you're thinking about alcohol a lot, not necessarily because you crave it or because you want it or you feel like drinking. It's more you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to go to this social situation where like I'm going to be around people who are drinking. Are people going to pressure me into, give me grief, ask me lots of questions, pressure me? Am I going to want to drink in that moment? How do I say no? What's my excuse going to be? What am I going to drink instead? What's my exit plan? How am I going to be able to leave? What's my excuse? So you're actually like, these things are coming up, and people are going to invite you on a boat party. Well, do I even want to go on that? Do I want to be the only person not drinking, and how am I going to navigate it? So I don't know about you, but I kind of found myself in that first 6 months thinking a lot, probably even more so about drinking than when I was actually drinking.
I think it took me 9 months to reap all the benefits. So like 2 weeks to like start sleeping better. I signed up to this 1 year no beer. So the first 90 days was like, this first challenge. It wasn't that much time. And I just found it genuinely quite easy because it was very similar to the things I'd done before. And my friends had known me to be someone who stops drinking from time to time. And we do these challenges as a bunch of mates. And it's quite fun. I think 3 to 6 months was weirdly very difficult because I think I knew that I hadn't quite invented this new life. So I was stuck in this weird moment of got through the first 3 months on willpower and just like, this is quite easy. And then the second 3 months were like, well, what am I going to do? And then I think I had a lot of friends who were like definitely not inviting me to certain things. I had some friends who were like, call me when you start drinking again. Literally at that. In jest, but also like it was true. By 9 months, I was like, well, wouldn't it be weird if this new life, which I'm suddenly enjoying 9 months in, like my friends not pressuring me, I've met some other people who are kind of similar to me, I've got this new routine, and I'm like performing well at work, and the studio was actually starting to do really well at that stage. We'd found a way to charge for certain things, and it was growing in popularity, and we were doing these really fun things like beach cleanups and stuff. So I was like, actually, wouldn't it be weird if I only had 3 months of this before I did my whole 1 year no beer, and then I went back to drinking? Like, wouldn't it be such a waste for like spent all this time and only 25% of it was worth it. So yeah, the 1 Year No Beer app is definitely great. It was definitely super helpful. So the thing I said to myself was, I'm just going to carry on. I'm going to carry on not drinking after 1 year. But the only way I can do that is by making it my thing. So for that first year, I was like not really talking about it, not preaching about it, not judging anyone, not really engaging in any conversation. If anyone asked me, I'd just be like, yeah, it's my thing. Are you still doing that? Yeah. And that was it. So then when I went back to London in August last year, I was like, I'm definitely going to go to this place called Club Soda. I'm going to go and do some more digging. I'm quite an obsessive person anyway, and I like collecting things. So I did this with coffee. I did this with cocktails. I do this with records. So I was like, well, I'm sure there's this world around non-alc that I haven't really seen. So I'm just going to go and find out about it. So I just made one of my Instagram highlights on my personal account about alcohol-free beers. And I just started posting every single beer I had that was non-alc, partly as a way that I could remember and partly as a way where it kind of kept me accountable. So it's like a fun thing for me to go and explore. And it's something that keeps me from not drinking. And it's something that maybe other people are going to ask me about, that they're going to be interested. And maybe other people can recommend some stuff to me, because definitely non-alc beers were like the main thing that stopped me drinking during that first year, because it was such a good substitute. And it was the habit more than anything else that if I was stressed with work or if I just came home and there was nothing to do, it was so easy to go and get a couple of beers.
That is the same thing for me. And this is why this kind of podcast has come about, because the non-alc alternatives were just this huge bridge for me. Like they allowed me to have that prop in my hand, you know, the habit, the crutch, whatever you want to call it. Sophisticated, tastes great. And I just felt included. I still felt part of the tribe. And if I didn't have them, I don't know if I would have done it.
Also, a lot of people don't realize that these things are not, this is not like a kind of, this is not like methadone for heroin addicts, right? Like there's a lot of people I know who just choose not to drink because they just want to have perform better at their job. They want to wake up earlier and do more things. Like that's kind of how I felt. Like I've got friends who are definitely alcoholics and they've had to deal with that, and it's not nice to look at. So I look at those people, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not there. The thing that 1 Year No Beer taught me was it's not black and white. It's not like, I'm not an alcoholic because I can I have a few drinks and do well at my job, and like my health is good and all my health checkups are fine. I might drink over the recommended limit, but it seems okay. And then this person, they're like definitely an alcoholic, and that's very different to me. The thing that kind of got me with 1 Year No Beer is there's like a lot of gray, and everything's constantly moving. So are you someone who is maybe having 3 bottles of wine on a Sunday and then going to hot yoga on a Monday, like a lot of our friends? Like you're walking towards like your gray is getting darker. Or are you someone who is deciding to take a break for 3 months? Your gray is getting lighter. But if there's drinking involved, unless you're like really conscious about it and you've got a handle on it, then it's moving somewhere. And that's the thing that really got me. I was like, my gray is probably getting a bit darker this week. Or like, that time I opened up the studio to the public, I was getting into a darker gray zone. So like, I don't know, I'm quite lucky in the fact that I can be quite conscious of those things, but I definitely didn't appreciate that until I started following more content around that area, doing more digging, understanding like more about this kind of people's relationships with alcohol and what I could learn from it.
I know, and the reality is you might not see yourself as being addicted to it or as an addict, with that label, but it is an addictive substance. It is something that when you have a drink, what it does to you, it makes you want another one and another one. And then if you have a couple of days off, your body craves it and wants another one. So even if you don't see yourself as an addict or addicted to it, there is an element that's that's as a substance, that's what it's designed to do, and that's what it does. So, that's where that kind of grey comes in, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing that definitely hit me doing 1 year no beer was the whole, your alcohol doesn't ease your anxiety. Your alcohol causes your anxiety, which makes you want to drink. I was like, oh, isn't it weird I didn't see it from that angle?
Yeah.
And it took me a while to kind of get out of that loop. And that's maybe this kind of whole month 3 to month 6 that I had some real challenges around, because there were definitely some difficult moments at work I had to deal with, or difficult like things I had to deal with like back home, or just things that were stressful, where it just felt more natural to have a drink and then deal with it. I had to deal with it head on and kind of, I don't know, feel all the emotions, feel all of the problems it was causing, and deal with it in the moment with no way out. Yeah. That was like, that's this kind of dealing with the rocks kind of perspective.
Those months 3 to 6 is really interesting, because like for me, they were actually some of the loneliest, because it's like, your friends still haven't maybe settled into knowing you now as a non-drinker. And so you kind of still get the questions, or you're still not drinking, or not being invited to places. Yeah. That kind of kicks in then. And you haven't found your new friends, your new tribe, or you haven't started attracting those people yet. And so it's quite lonely. And for me, it was kind of around that 6-month mark and again, it's the revealing of the rocks. And it all of a sudden started to bring up a lot of things for me, and I realized like maybe things that I wasn't dealing with because, I was keeping myself busy. Yeah. And so you kind of just have to, during that time, is kind of sit with it. And there's a lot of reflection and a lot of healing that tends to get done when you stop drinking.
Yes.
I hold on to a lot of shame, and it's shame of maybe how I behaved 10, 15, 20 years ago when I was drinking, and I was young and getting myself into all sorts of states. And that's something that I've really had to kind of like unpack and work through, the person I was then versus the person I am now. And I wasn't prepared for that. I just thought I was stopping drinking. Like, I didn't know that there was going to be this kind of whole evolution that can come with it, and I don't think I was quite ready for it, but it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, I had a lot of that kind of stuff as well. I also realized I was wasting a lot of my time, and maybe that's like a lot what drives me now is I'm like not necessarily trying to make it back, but I'm just like so much more time, and there's so much more possibility to get stuff done. There's no underlying anxiety caused by lack of sleep, or there's this pressure of trying to run a business, and it's my business, and there's a difference between running your business and running other people's businesses, and having all these things to get done, but somehow you can get it done with those push and pull forces. Yeah, and then also like trying to defend my character these days by, it's like, this is my thing. Like, why would I ever have a drink now if this is like my thing? Yeah. It's now good for my business. It makes me more credible with people. It makes me able to keep my promises better. I can now promise more things to more people. Yeah, there's stuff like that where I kind of like locked myself into this kind of lane that's kind of quite narrow, but I think that's what I need sometimes. So yeah, I think finding that is also quite helpful.
Yeah, I just can't believe like the incredible people that have come into my life over the last year that maybe when I was drinking I would have overlooked. And just some of the connections and the stories and, relationships that I'm unlocking has really, really surprised me.
Yeah, well, it's fun. We obviously met 10 years ago when we were in different worlds. So it's fun to see that. It's fun to see the people you've introduced me to. And I think like this kind of silent revolution is happening. And I think it's good like for other people, like the people I see around me I like all the people who are dipping in and out. I think those are the people I want to spend even more time with. Like my trainer, Joel, he's the guy that healed my knee. I like his stories of like taking non-out beers to like dad's barbecues and having a beer koozie like everyone else does. So people don't see he's got like one normal beer, one round, one non-out beer, another round. And then he's crushing his training in the morning and all the other dads are like hungover, trying to like piece it back together the next day. Like I really like that kind of stuff, and I'm not interested at the moment in being someone who kind of is a hybrid. Maybe that would happen in the future. I've got to figure it out. But for now, I definitely just I'm focused on drinking nothing for the time being. But there's lots of people around me who I get a real buzz because of putting out all this content. They come to me for advice. It's really fun to see that. And I guess the thing I'd like other people to know is that you can benefit yourself through doing that. So I directly benefit from having non-alcoholic drinks at other bars and at my friends' festivals. Like, why wouldn't I introduce those, like the non-alc people, like the guys at Gulp or Mash Gang, to my friends at Ice Cream Sundays? Like, it's a no-brainer. It's so easy to do. And why don't we kind of grow this community? So I'll have more friends to do fun parties with. And then, I don't know, then I end up with these like nice stories from people who are like, I had another friend who wanted to stop drinking recently, and I gave him a few drinks, and he's basically been stopped drinking for like 3 months. He said his relationship got better with his partner, and he feels better. He's training more. So I also get like that kind of self-reinforcing thing as well, where I don't know, I would just never have got that. And that's just like, I know it's quite mind-blowing because that doesn't happen when I was drinking. So no one came up to me when I was like recommending bottles of champagne or beer, telling me that, oh, thanks, that improved my relationship, or like, thanks for that, I'm sleeping better. So it's just quite fun, like these kind of hidden benefits.
You're seeing that in the event space, right? So let's talk a little bit more about kind of Wild Pill Studio, where it's at now, all the other types of things that you're doing in the kind of the wellness space as well.
I think the mission has not really changed. We're trying to do something which we love first because that's what's really genuine. We were really into sustainability for a while and as our main thing, not to say that sustainability is not important to us, it is, but it's kind of changed. Basically at the time, so maybe when we just started building the studio, a lot of the announcements during the pandemic around sustainable finance and this is how we're going to change the world, and we're going to link it to all of the outcomes in society, and we're going to get much more serious around reporting and carbon emissions and stuff like that, was like mainstream news for kind of the first time. And I could suddenly see a way that I could make that into my job because I was working a lot in hiring people into tech and finance and payments. So it was really interesting to see that something that I was really into, mainly because I'm from like a small town in the UK that's very green, and half my family are farmers. I was kind of always very attached to good food and like the land and the countryside. So I always found it weird that people wouldn't recycle or would eat poor quality food or stuff like that. So it was never really a pretentious thing, but always something that I was like took for granted. So sustainability was really important to us at the beginning. We wanted to build the studio cheap and in a wholesome way, in a way that felt like a bit DIY. And then we got to meet people who kind of felt the same way. And I was like, let's just do a lot of stuff in sustainability. We worked with Matilda, Ocean Purpose Project, provided the sound system at her beach cleanup. And that was a really good way for us to balance out what we were doing at night. We had a couple of nights where we were a bit too busy. We had like one guy who was caused a lot of trouble. Basically, this guy was starting a fight at our studio when it was like the most peaceful, like friendly atmosphere. So we basically took a pause on running nights for a while while we figured out what to do next. And we just did daytime stuff. And daytimes were really fun, like especially going to the beach cleanup, because again, that was what we wanted to do. Like, we didn't want to have to organize our own beach cleanup on East Coast Park, find all the pickers, find all of the bin liners. So we were really honest with ourselves to say, look, we're not that very good at that. So let's go and entertain someone else's beach cleanup. Let's find someone who loves doing beach cleanups, who is the best person we can find at beach cleanups. Yeah. And then let's bring our sound system. And then we met Matilda and she let us do that and did that for a long time. Where all the wellness stuff came in is that I noticed that a lot of the sustainability people were burning out. It was a really intense period for a lot of them. The pandemic was still there. A lot of these promises were being made. Everyone was on these conference calls. You could see these people had really genuine intentions. And maybe a lot of them were kind of, I don't know, like this is before everyone knew about the kind of dangers of greenwashing, or a lot of the bad press was coming out, like a bank which was doing something sustainable over here but still funding coal over here.
Yeah.
Like you could see over the space of about a year, a lot of the sustainability people I knew, their health wasn't very good. Or maybe they'd started something because of a health issue and they wanted to save a part of like the ecosystem. So I think it got to middle of last year where I was like, well, if I'm going to try and focus more on drinking less, like I want to do more things to do with wellness, to do with our events. The cargobike ride was maybe 6 months old and doing quite well, and I was like, let's just do more of these these wellness focused events, because we need to get everyone feeling better before they can like take care of like their work around sustainability. So that the whole idea kind of shifted. We're like, let's get everyone feeling good and feeling more energized first, feeling healthier, offering better options to them, and then maybe they can go and do something meaningful later. If we try and get people to do something meaningful from a really low base, then it's probably not going to work. So, and then the whole immersion thing that we're doing kind of came about because, a month after my 1 year of no drinking, it was my birthday. So I still had a birthday party at our studio. I still bought a bunch of drinks for all my friends because I was like, I want them to have a good time. This is what they want. And I just stood there at like close to midnight in our studio. I was like, I'm not really having fun. Like this, I'm like super tired. This is quite late. Can't stay out late as much as I used to because I was doing like a lot of biking in the morning. And I just had this like moment where I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring all my mates to my time of day, which had shifted to the mornings. And it just kind of hit me. I was like, let's do a sober party or let's do a morning party. And I just basically chatted to a few people, and very quickly we got some knowledge about some parties that were happening in Australia, overseas, maybe I think in the US. And I basically just put it all together in my head with a couple of friends, like Nick and Andy helped me a lot. And basically a few of these kind of funny and serendipitous moments happened where I was like, you know what, maybe we should do cold plunges at this party because that's supposed to increase your dopamine levels. And I know that when I stop drinking, I'm not quite as excited as when, let's say an hour into a brunch or like into seeing my mates and I've had a few drinks. So I did have to kind of admit that, you do miss those peaks, but overall, I didn't want to progress and start giving people shots in this morning party. So I was like, you know what, if I just admit that maybe my sober parties are going to have 10% less dopamine than a regular party, how am I going to substitute it? So I was like, okay, well, we'll just get coffee in the morning. We'll get people in sunlight. So we'll do it at sunrise. The human connection side will really work. And I'll find someone to give me some cold plunges. And then a message to the ThriveX team, and Shu was replying to me, basically lent us 2 cold plunges. So the first party was upstairs party at our studio. And then downstairs party was the cold plunges because we couldn't have that much water in our studio. And then basically everyone loved it. We had all these messages on Instagram afterwards saying, like, what just happened? Like, because and I'm sure a lot of people know this, but I didn't know at the time. Cold plunges give you a 300% dopamine boost for 2 hours. If you have a 2 units, which is like a pint or a big shot, that will last for 20 minutes. And then if you drink, the amount your dopamine goes up diminishes over time, depending on the amount of drinks you have. So you'll never it's impossible to have drinks that will give you a 300% dopamine boost for two hours. So I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. This is better than drinking. So I was like, okay, maybe I can get people on this. So, but we couldn't give away tickets. The funny thing is we basically sold like 30 tickets, just about covered all our costs. But I just couldn't give them away. People were like, why am I going to come to a party at 6:30 in the morning?
Yeah.
But the ones that did loved it. And it kind of gave us a bit of encouragement. The whole idea for our wellness parties was very focused on community and fun first, and then we would have the environment would be set up where it would be a default environment where you kind of, if you were just there hanging out, you would get the benefits. And it's kind of following the principles of the Blue Zones guys, where if you look at people who live to be 100, it's not because what supplements they take or anything like that. It's like the space in which they live is set up so it's very easy for them to do the behaviors that you need to be 100. Yeah. So what that means is you're moving a little bit every day, which builds strength.
And you're closer to your community.
Yeah, so you see people.
Access to great food. And,
You probably eat more of a plant-rich diet that's closer to where you live. I just love those stories. So we curate the experience in the background. You don't need to worry about it. Just show up. If you want to have fun and just listen to a DJ, you can do that. If you want to do cold plunges for the first time, we've got people who will guide you. And we've found some great guides who are also fun. Like Lucas used to be a DJ. He's got his own story, his own hero's journey, which is really inspiring. And if you want to have like healthy drinks, we've got these. We've got Brendan who makes the Jamu immunity shots. But we're also like just being outside and drinking coffee at that time of day is great. And then if you want to do any of the advanced stuff, then you can do the cold plunges for longer. You can do more of them. There's a bunch of people who come to our parties who are like PTs and nutritionists, and it's been this really nice meeting place. Yeah. So we've kind of built this thing where we want to hang out with people who are more like us. Yeah. And it's been really inspiring. So it's not the gym. It's not a late night party. It's not like slogging it, running on your own. It's kind of like a combination of all of them. So yeah, we're just having fun with it and just keeping going.
So if anyone wants to come to any of these events, how can they find out about them?
Yeah, at the moment, we are very reliant on Instagram, which is good in sometimes when, like a reel pops and we get like 30,000 views, like Cargobike recently. It's bad when people have to follow us for that reason. So we're going to launch something called Club Pearl at some point, which is going to be our direct email list, but we're still working on that. There are other partners who we're doing more with, and we're becoming more visible with them. So Yoga Movement have been amazing, and we are trying to do more with them. They like us, we like them. Yeah. So we've been super fortunate to be featured on their DM list and their socials. Same with Anywheel, same with Chimmy's and some of our other partners. So at Feast and No Sleep Club. I think we're becoming a bit more omnipresent, but yeah, there's definitely more that we can do.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait for one. I'm definitely going to start coming to some of the events. I can't believe I've not been yet. I've recently kind of got into ice baths. So at the Ice Bath Club. And again, they're great because they're really kind of fostering a really nice community there. Yeah. Very, very, very social. So I've definitely been in a bit of a bubble, like the last kind of 5 years, having kids and being in COVID and raising them down on Sentosa. So like ready to start kind of rejoining society again, I think, after kind of, like I said, after having kids and everything. So yeah, really kind of excited to start coming along to the events and really meeting more people within the community. I'm just really excited that this even exists in Singapore, that there is a place for, people who are maybe on a little bit more of a wellness journey or who are looking to drink less, that this exists. And it's not just here, right? There's, lots going on in cities all over the world. Yeah. And I think for anyone listening who's not in Singapore, it's, these communities do exist. It might take a little bit of hunting to try and kind of find out where they are and what's going on. But, it's definitely happening.
Yeah, or just build your own. I would just encourage people, like, if that's what you want to do, then, and you do something which is really pleasing for you, then other people will see it, and you'll get people who either want to help you because they just see it as something inspiring they want to be part of, or they'll have some energy they bring, and that's what sustains things. And I would just love for people to have confidence in that, because I think we all need to see more people who are doing the things they love. And also, I would just like to encourage other, particularly venues and bars. I know it's been a difficult year for everyone. Like a lot of the bar partners and restaurant partners had quite a soft start to the year, that they're affected by a lot of this, people who are not drinking. And a lot of these people are my friends. So like, I don't want them to go out of business. So the thing, I guess, that we're seeing at the moment is, let's take Gulp. Russell's a great guy and he's got a great team of co-founders. They had a really good January and they sold out of all their non-alc beers. So like, I think it's not necessarily that like people not drinking are the enemy. I think just I would encourage bars and restaurants to see that developing these menus, engaging with this community is something that is worthwhile. It's commercially can be very successful.
Yeah.
And it's not, and again, like this whole like, are you an alcoholic? Are you someone who is not? There's a gray area around non-alc that we talk about. Maybe you're getting some customers who don't come back because your non-alc menu doesn't exist or is not very good. And maybe they don't bring their friends and their friends all drink. So you're also missing out on some of your core customers who will love your core menu. There's some nights I've been out and they only serve soft drinks, like Coke, Sprite, ginger ale, and like those drinks would give me a massive headache. And if you're trying to take care of yourself, that's not what you really want to drink too much of. If you really work on these options, then you can drive like a whole segment of your business. Yeah. We're going to start organizing something called Nolo Night soon, where our core demographic are going to be people who are like 35 and upwards. So people in the CBD, people who don't mind spending money on going out, who want like an experience, and executives who maybe don't want to have drinks with their biggest customer, so maybe they're going to invite them there and have a bit more of a social interaction. I see like Nolo options as driving performance. So yeah, like that's something I guess I'm trying to leave with people.
Yeah, for sure. I think the margins are there and people want to feel included. People want variety. Yeah. It's not good enough anymore just to have like one non-alcoholic beer or just some soft drinks on the menu. There's money being left on the table by not having a selection of non-alcoholic alternatives.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm keen to be part of that revolution and try and help as much as I can. So yeah, and it's just good to see, especially all the partners. Like I know you've introduced us to Free Spirit and Emma and the team. So yeah, it's just really exciting to see how this is taking off and see how everyone can kind of play their part to help each other out. So yeah.
This has just been so enriching and actually really inspiring as well. Like I love that you're coming at this from a place of like what brings you joy and what makes you happy, and that's why I've got no doubt that it's going to continue to be a massive success.
Yes. Well, thank you. And let's talk again. I'd love to see where we are in like a year or two. It's we're definitely in it at the moment, but it's a fun ride. So
I'm interviewing Dan from Ice Cream Sundays when I get back from holiday. And again, can just kind of get his perspective on nightlife and what he's seeing and what, changes are coming. So look, we're going to have a conversation offline because there's so many other people that I want you to introduce me to. You've just definitely name dropped a few people on this conversation that I'm like, right, okay, they're going to be great to talk to as well.
Yes. Well, we'll get everyone introduced. I guess that's one of the skills I learned from being a headhunter in my old career.
Exactly.
So
great connector.
Yes.
So I'm going to link to Wild Pearl and all of kind of your sites and social and everything below. So anybody who wants to check them out, please do so. Again, thank you so much for your time. I've loved talking to you today.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks for doing this. I look forward to tuning into more episodes.
And then, to anyone who's still listening, thank you so much. I would love to hear any sort of feedback that you've got, any comments, any people that you think we should talk to. That would also be amazing. I'm really trying to kind of build a community of people who honestly just want to drink less and, are kind of exploring what a life without alcohol might look like. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.